Hi everybody. I'm out here on my porch and it's kind of the end of the day. The sun is actually starting to go down and it's time for me to wind down and start getting ready for bed. But I thought I would share a video with y'all regarding sleep since that's coming up here shortly. Prior to me having this seeing or this realization that there is no self, I had quite a bit of trouble with sleep. And I wanted to kind of share that with y'all in case anybody else is following some sort of similar experience as I am. So prior to me having the seeing, I struggled with sleep. I'd have to have a very specific bedtime routine. After dinner, I would usually clean up. Then if my husband was home and I was able to, I would go to the gym and work out. And then I would come home and have a long bath, and my bath always had to have Epsom salt that had like lavender scents and sleepy time scents. And then after that, I would either have to take a Celestial Seasonings sleepy time tea, or I would take a glass of wine or two and watch TV or read or do something kind of low, just something that wasn't really racing my mind too much, just something that I could veg out and relax to. So that was usually my bedtime routine, and even then I still struggled to sleep. So sometimes I couldn't sleep. I would have another glass of wine or another tea, and this was just a routine that happened every day. And then, I may have fallen asleep, but I could remember I would wake up in the middle of the night, and usually it was around like 2 in the morning, and then I had trouble going back to sleep. But usually when I would wake up, it was quite frustrating. Like, I would be frustrated and just trying to go back to sleep, and I couldn't, and just kind of beating myself up like, oh, you have to get up in the morning, why can't you just sleep? And I'd do the whole counting sheep, the praying, the sounds, listening to like calming sounds. Sometimes I'd have to go into another room and just kind of see if I could go to sleep. So it was quite frustrating, and this was a pattern that happened, pretty much every day. To the point too, I used to take over-the-counter sleep stuff, and that stuff didn't even work. There was a time that I did get a prescription for sleep medicine, and it did work, but it made me sleep way more than I needed to. So it was very hard to go to work the next day, like, to wake up for that and be feeling like I usually felt. So I ended up not taking those medicines. I would take some natural remedies and things like that. But sleep was just something that was always just very frustrating. I love to be sleeping, but that process of falling asleep was difficult, and then waking up and then trying to fall back asleep was even worse. So this was just something that was just part of my adult life, and it was just pretty frustrating. It all started when I was working a social work job, and it was actually a night job, and it was between the hours I worked part-time from 9 to about 2 in the morning, answering domestic violence and sexual assault hotlines. And so after my shift was over, a lot of times I'd just be very worried, or just wondering what was happening with certain callers that had called and things like that. And it was very hard for me to go back to sleep, or in that case just go to sleep, because I was just getting off of work. So it started with that started my sleep problems, and then from then on it just became kind of like a pattern. And when I would wake up at night, it was just worrying about what was going to happen the next day, or just even worrying about the fact that I couldn't sleep, or worrying about actual things that may have been bothering me. So this was how I pretty much lived up until I had the realization of no self. When that was seen, a lot of things changed. I slept just fine. I would just fall asleep without having anything, without having a tea, without having wine, without anything. I was back to almost being like a child, like just doing my day, and then by the end of the day, just being tired and wanting to go to sleep. And I'd sleep the whole night, and it still is that way. I sleep the whole night. I don't wake up at night. I also don't dream anymore. I've had one dream but I used to have a lot more dreams, so that has changed. So sleep is just sleep now, and it's great. It's really something that has really changed my life. So I wanted to share that with y'all. On the rare occasion that I do wake up in the middle of the night, and that's usually like when my dogs are barking over something that they hear outside, or there's a noise or something like that, I might wake up. And I actually really enjoy waking up in the middle of the night. Now that it doesn't happen so often, or hardly ever happens, when I do wake up at night, it's almost like a special time. So it's quiet. It's so quiet. It's dark, and it's just something very peaceful. So now when I wake up at night, if it happens, I just kind of lay there and just enjoy it. I don't even get worried about, am I going to be able to wake up in the morning on time? And am I going to be tired? I don't even worry about that. I just wake up and just enjoy it, enjoy the quietness. And it's just something that I had never really experienced before. Sleep was always very frustrating as an adult. But now it seems like I've reverted back to like being a child, because when I was a child, up until the time I was 18, I was always just had a normal sleep schedule. And I can remember even like in my teenage years, friends would say, why can't you stay up later? You know, like if they wanted to party, or if it was like a sleepover or something. I could never really stay up past 10:30. And now I've gone back to that as well, and it's really great. There's just no worry, no anxiety, nothing there to keep me awake. So I just wanted to share that with y'all in case anybody else is going through something like this. Of course, this is something more positive, so I think people would just like to hear this, to know this. But, you know, if you are struggling with sleep, this kind of realization can really change things. But again, this isn't something that is just happening here. It can happen for anybody. You know, there is no self in any of these bodies. And just even the main thing that changed in my case, of course there's no self, but as far as sleep, the main thing that I noticed was that I wasn't worrying anymore. I wasn't thinking about what would happen the next day, or getting angry with myself for not being able to sleep. I was also not having all these stories about what could happen in this situation or that situation, or just these stories that our mind makes up when we can't sleep. That all just stopped. So, you know, there is some truth to just trying to think positively before falling asleep. Of course, nobody's doing it, but you know, it's just seen that the majority of everything that was related to my sleep problem was just these thoughts. You know, the thoughts of anxiety, worry, just shame for having a sleep problem. All of those things were literally what was keeping me up at night. And that all those things just don't even exist. All that exists is what's happening now. So to be worrying and laying there thinking about things from the past or things from the future, it's just totally silly now, because none of that even exists. And so those thoughts just don't come up anymore. And that has changed my whole sleep experience. So I wanted to share that with y'all before I start to get ready for bed here. So this is just another facet of what happens when you have this sort of awakening. And again, this is just something that we all have, and that we all can tap into. So I wanted to share that with y'all. I hope y'all have a good evening and a good night, and y'all get some restful sleep. I know I will. Thank you. Good night.